TomTalks. Blimey, it's been 2 months already? No, it hasn't. It's been 3 months, you late knob. Anyways, we're here again. Hello all and welcome to the 13th episode of TomTalks, the programme where we talk about everything to do with Blue Bastard. Let's dive in face first. Take it away, Sheffield. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the books that introduced the world to a special English island where trains can speak. So it's only appropriate that my first TomTalks of the year should be dedicated to the Railway series, right? Many people have narrated the books over the years for audiobooks, vinyl records, and audio cassettes to name a few, and I thought it'd be fun to rank all 9 of them. Yes, I know Scrapyard Studios has already ranked the Railway series narrators, but 1, this is how I would rank them, and 2, since that video, another guy narrated the Railway series as well. So here's the ranking criteria for the video. How well do they tell the story? As in, how good is their delivery and do they capture the feel of the story being told? Are they consistent? For instance, if one of these narrators gives a character a specific accent or tone of voice, are they consistent in that? And are they consistent in their storytelling energy? How do I feel listening to them? Basically, this is my personal verdict on these narrators, and how good a job I feel they did. So now that we have the ground rules laid out, we can begin the ranking. For context, here are the narrators I'll be taking into consideration. Wilbert Awdry himself, Johnny Morris, Willie Rushton, Sir John Gielgud, Damn it, why do I always glitch out saying that? Ted Robbins, Michael Angelis, Ben Forster, Kevin Jonas, and Bruce Alexander. How good are these narrators at narrating the Railway series? Let's find out! So kicking this whole thing off, the guy at Stone Dead Last here is not because he's a bad narrator per se, but because I don't really know where to put him since I've never heard him narrating. And that person is Kevin Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. Okay, so in 2020, this reading app thingy called Caribou that nobody knows exactly what it is partnered with Mattel to have the stories from Thomas the Tank Engine read aloud on the app for the 75th anniversary. Out of order for some ungodly reason, and the person they got for these narrations was Kevin Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. Since there's no audio of his narrations for Caribou on YouTube at the time of this video's upload, I didn't have any experience with his narrations. I didn't have it in me to download some dumb reading app that I wouldn't be using again after this video was completed. However, I did hear Jonas's voice for the trailer, and as much as I did attempt to picture his voice in the stories, I'm sorry, I don't really think he's a good fit. He's definitely not terrible. I'm sure he had a great time reading the Thomas stories, but I'm not sure his tone of voice could really suit the stories he's telling. But with that said, I think he could do a good job giving each of these characters their own distinctive voices. Like, he could work if someone else was telling the story while he voiced the characters. Again, this is coming from someone who hasn't downloaded some useless reading app just to hear his voice, but from what I have heard, I'd say he'd rank around the below average area. And now it's time for, quite possibly, my most cancelable opinion you'll ever hear. But next on the list is Michael Angelis. Oh fuck, I can hear the angry mob turning up. Alright, let me explain! Look, while Michael Angelis did very well as an overall narrator for the show, his later model series narration was just plain bad.
Diarrhea.
And unfortunately for his Railway series audiobooks, he uses this tone for narrating them, and it makes the stories feel just like bedtime stories. Obviously, a lot of the stories in the Railway series are bedtime stories, but the other narrators do a very good job at bringing some sort of energy that hides the fact that they are. Whereas Michael is just doing the bare minimum and giving the stories a certain energy that could potentially make the listener want to fall asleep. At least that's how I feel when hearing this Railway series narration. In terms of consistency, he only gives his distinctive later model series character voices to like 20% of the characters. His most prominent, of course, is Topham's.
So, Gordon didn't want to take the special and ran into a ditch.
But when he voiced James, he only did his iconic Scouser accent in the James the Red Engine stories.
I am a really splendid engine.
he thought.
Before he decided to render the accent non-existent for the remaining books.
I am a splendid engine, answered Lofty.
Not to mention how in a lot of these audiobooks, you just hear some later model series song blasting away behind the narration. It gets really distracting after a while. And don't get me started on Thomas Terence in the Snow, where the story just comes to a screeching halt to play Patience is a Virtue. Wait, what are we talking about? So yeah, while you all are going to start shooting me for this placement, I firmly believe that this was just not good narration from Angelis. Also, does anyone else find it strange that Michael Brandon didn't do his own audiobooks for the US? Next up on the list is Sir John Gielgud. Gielgud, 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 Gielgud. Darn, I failed again. I'll probably get some gunshots fired at me for this placement too, but if I'm honest, Sir John is just okay. Like, his posh sounding voice is an interesting sound to go alongside these stories, to say the least. And listening to him using this voice for characters like Thomas and Percy is just so funny.
"Wake up, lazybones," he whistled. "Do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me." And he ran off laughing. "Never mind," whispered Percy the small engine. "I like your whistling."
While I do enjoy hearing his posh voice and how he makes the Railway series feel very grandiose and sophisticated, I feel like he overdoes it in that department. Just a little. Not to mention he talks really quickly. So fast, in fact, that in some stories he misses out lines. Like in Gordon's Whistle when he removed like 60% of Gordon's complaining in the beginning. Though obviously it's not all doom and gloom with John, as I do enjoy his delivery overall. Plus he revealed Topham's true first name, so that's really epic. All in all, Sir John is just okay. Nothing more, nothing less. Seriously, why do I always glitch out saying his surname? Next up, at the peak of the OK tier, is the late Ben Forster, also known as Mr. Perkins. Now, Ben Forster is an interesting case in my opinion, as when he narrates the stories, he kinda tells them in a shorter, more stripped down way, or just flat out tells them in the way the TV series did, especially in the case of A Scarf for Percy, all while we're being shown some of the ugliest illustrations ever from Lorraine Marshall. Regarding how Forster delivers his narrations, I really like it. I don't know about you guys, but I think his northern accent just overall suits the vibes of the books incredibly well, and he delivers a different style of energy for each story. You can tell Forster's just having a ball narrating these stories, and I really like it. But yeah, there is the fact that he doesn't tell the stories fully, and I ain't sure how to feel about that. You tell me what you guys think about it. Overall though, I really like Ben Forster's narration. He did a great job. For the first narrator in the overall good tier, we have Ted Robbins. Ted is of course most known in this fandom as the narrator of Christopher Awdry's stories. Well, most of them at least. I'm really fond of Ted's narrations. He talks at a perfect pace for each story, and delivers the right amount of energy for whatever the story demands. Not to mention, I always love it when he goes, ooh,
Ooh, he groaned.
I don't know why, it's just funny to me. I just feel really engaged when I hear Ted's narrations, especially with the fun use of sound effects in the background. My only real complaint with Ted is that, well, he didn't stick around to narrate the last 4 of Christopher's books. I mean, he could have at least narrated Thomas and his friends before heading off to watch movies with Dick and Dom. Besides that, I really enjoy Ted Robbins as a narrator. He did so well narrating these stories. I just wish he narrated the others that came after Wilbert. Next up on the list is the one, the only, Wilbert Awdry himself. Like, of course he ranks high on this list. I mean, he wrote these stories, of course he'd know how to narrate them the intended way. His only audio narrations are those of the first 2 stories of the 3 railway engines, and I really like how he did it. He tells the stories as if he was telling them to Christopher. I think Wilbert is the only of the railway series narrators who can pull off the bedtime story feel perfectly and still make the stories sound interesting. See that, Michael? You see that? That's what you could have done. There isn't too much else to say about Wilbert as a railway series narrator. He just does the job really well. There's just 3 more narrators who did it slightly better than him. Next up, just making the top 3 is none other than my original number 1, Willie Rushton. Talk about a narrator that just fits in perfectly. Rushton is by far the most consistent of all the Railway series narrators. Consistent in his character voices, consistent in his delivery, consistent in his voice tone. He just hits all the boxes for a fantastic narrator. In fact, part of me wishes he narrated the first 4 seasons of the show. I like him that much. I particularly love how his narrations for the audiobooks he did start and end. At the beginning and end of every story he tells, there's some engine sound to be heard, all taken from the internationally famous Peter Handford collection. For instance, the sounds heard at the beginning of his narration for Wrong Road features this sound effect of A4 Lord Farringdon from Peter Handford's Gresley Pacific's audio recording. I'll link it in the description if anyone's interested. I always thought this use of sound effects was a neat little detail. Even with that, there is still one little weird thing about Rushton's narrations. It's the fact that he gives Rheneas a Welsh accent.
You be thankful, Sir Andal, that we're not a mountain railway.
But he didn't give Skarloey a Welsh accent.
The owner has just bought 2 more engines, he said.
Like, huh? Besides that, Rushton is easily one of the most perfect narrators for the books out there. For the second place spot, we have, in my opinion, the most iconic narrator for the Railway series, Mr. Johnny Morris. Johnny Morris just sounds like he's having a really fun time telling these stories, and thus I have a fun time listening to him. I love the way he ad-libs in all of the stories he tells, and brings in his own dialogue, and especially his mimicking of train noises. Johnny just goes wild with these sound effects, and he makes the stories feel more engaging whenever he mimics the sounds. He's genuinely brilliant to listen to in this regard, except when his sounds are being used for provocative jokes. Thanks a lot, 20-minute YTP challenge. The only thing that really holds Johnny back a bit is that his accents aren't always consistent. Like, yeah, he consistently makes Henry sound like a gentle giant.
It isn't wrong to whistle, you see, but we just don't do it, eh?
He consistently makes Gordon sound like a pompous guy with a Yorkshire accent.
Well, I'm Gordon. Who are you?
He consistently does a Welsh accent? For James,
I'm a splendid engine, you see, ready for anything. You never see my paint dirty. Oh no.
and he straight up makes Toby sound like a farmer.
You're James. Why are you red then,
Richard Adland's barn's on fire, everybody send a child down the well.
But then there's Edward, where at first he just uses his natural speaking voice.
Look at me. Look at me.
And then later on in the stories he gives him a Devon accent.
Hello, Henry. You look splendid. I was pleased to hear your happy whistle yesterday.
And Thomas has a sort of Cockney voice to begin with.
Wake up, lazy bones.
And it became a bit milder?
They're the Vicar's Sunday School. I'm busy this evening, but the station master says I can ask you, Percy, to take them home.
Bottom line, it isn't as prominent in later stories. Also, bottom line, Johnny Morris is a fantastic Railway series narrator. So there. And at the very top spot is probably the guy nobody expected to be number one, but for me, it's Bruce Alexander. He just has everything. Every good thing that each narrator offered us, and he tells the stories in a way that makes me feel engaged, yet at peace at the same time. I'll admit, I wasn't the biggest fan of his narration when I first heard him. In fact, I actually mistook him for Sir John Guy, whose surname makes me glitch out, so I'm not taking any chances, before I managed to get to the brain and realise that this is a different guy. I absolutely love all the different voices Bruce gives to the characters, including his brilliantly posh voice he gives to Gordon.
You watch me this afternoon, little Edward, he boasted, as I rush through with the express. That'll be a splendid sight for you.
I also love the sort of adolescent Londoner voice he gives to James.
What's that, Doc? Are you terrified of bees? They're only insects after all, so don't let that buzzbox diesel tell you different.
And the hilariously fantastic Birmingham accent he gives to Oliver.
Gordon knows better. He says I'm sagacious.
Not to mention, Bruce's voice is just overall really nice to listen to, especially in the natural way he's telling the story. I don't really know how to explain it, but he tells the story in a way that makes you feel as though you're there witnessing the whole thing unfold. All in all, Bruce Alexander is without a doubt my favourite Railway series narrator of all, Unless someone else comes along to steal that title, I'm not sure that will ever change. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my ranking of every Railway series narrator. How would you guys rank the Railway series narrators? Be sure to let me know in the comments. Now remember, if you have any ideas for the show, be sure to comment your ideas down below. Oh bollocks, that rhymes. Anyways, I am really sorry for how late this video was, but thank you all for your patience. Also anyways, that's all for now. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.